So the story continues when Carlos and Lucia are looking through the window and they see this poster that says Secret Maya World. Suddenly from behind them, they hear a man shouting at them. And they turn around and they see this big muscle guy in a tight t-shirt that says on it, "End of Days Pact." And he begins to yell at them and tell them that this museum is a fake museum and not to believe what's being taught in it, that he himself is part of a group of people that know the world is coming to an end soon. In fact, in 3 days, because the Maya predicted it. And he kind of threatens the kids, but then he runs off. So the two kids, Carlos and Lucia, they run home and they talk to their grandparents. And when they get to their grandparents, they explain that they were just over at this old house. It used to be kind of a haunted house, but now it's this museum. And they saw some interesting things in the window, but somebody kind of bothered them outside. And it ends up that their grandfather, Abuelo Prieto, he knows the man who fixed up this museum. It's a friend of his. His name's Senor Julio. Senor Julio's from Guatemala, and he explains to the kids that the Maya had this great calendar system, and that this calendar system was coming to an end point, and that some people were saying the whole world was going to end, but that in fact, says Abuelo Prieto, the world was not going to end. But for them to learn about it, because now he's really got their curiosity up, they've got to go back to the Maya Calendar Museum and meet his friend, Senor Julio. So the next morning, the kids, in fact, go over to the museum again, and they go into the museum and they meet Senor Julio. But they're really happy because Senor Julio has a granddaughter also, and her name is Julia, in the sort of Mexican Latin way in which children are often named after parents or grandparents. Julia befriends the two kids, Carlos and Lucia, and begins to take them on a tour of the Maya Calendar Museum, showing them the Maya blouses that have all these symbols of agriculture and the sun, and also some of the whistles and flutes that they have in the museum. There also happens to be another character, and this character is very important, and this is a guacamaya bird, a big, colorful guacamaya bird, whose name is Octavio, but whom Senor Julio and his granddaughter Julia called Ocho. Now Ocho, he blurts out things that are kind of clues to what is the meaning of the Maya calendar. And Julia begins to explain to the kids that the Maya calendar itself really depends upon, first of all, two symbols. First, a symbol that meant Genesis, and secondly, a symbol that meant darkness. And that at the beginning of life was Genesis, and at the end of life was darkness. And at the beginning of a calendar, there's Genesis or light, and at the end there's darkness. But she also begins to tell them that, in fact, the Maya and the Aztec calendars were always recreating themselves. They were always starting over again. And she begins to give them the clue to the meaning of the Maya calendar. And it's a refrain that she not only says, but also other characters, including Ocho, the parrot, says. And that refrain is, the beginning is in the end. It's not that they've come to an end. And she begins to explain to them that the Maya had 3 calendars. First of all, as you can see in this image, they had what's called a ritual calendar of 260 days. And this was when certain ceremonies were held, and that's the circle that you see inside the larger circle. But another calendar that was greater than the 260-day calendar was the solar calendar. That's the 365-day calendar. And she begins to explain that this 260-day calendar, here comes some Maya math, and the 365-day calendar interact once every 18,980 days, which is a 52-year cycle. And so that the Maya have a ritual calendar, they have a solar calendar, and then they have a 52-year calendar. And then she reveals to them that they have even a bigger calendar. And this bigger calendar, which you see over here on the right, that's the long count calendar. And that's the calendar that's 5,300 and some years long. And it's that calendar, the long count calendar, that is coming to an end on December the 21st, 2012. And the kids get interested in this, and they're still kind of frightened, even though she tells them that, well, I don't think it really means that the world is coming to an end. It just means that the calendar's coming to an end. But the kids get kind of, they're not sure. They feel that maybe there's still some danger. Well, just at that moment, who comes into the museum but a woman from Pittsburgh, a woman named Miss Elizabeth. And Miss Elizabeth is kind of a grown-up hippie. And she believes, being from Pittsburgh, that the Maya's ancestors, way back 18,000 years ago, used to live near Pittsburgh, where the three rivers are, and that they migrated from there into Maya land. So she begins to try to tell the kids that the ancestors, or the people they're studying, are really from Pittsburgh. They don't buy it. The kids don't buy it. And neither does Ocho, the Guacamaya. And here you can see them all kind of looking very strangely at Miss Elizabeth. But what happens at this crucial moment in the story is that Julia tells the two visitors, that is, tells Lucia and Carlos, that she has a secret, a very secret idea. And they go out on the dock, and she shows them two things. She shows them a secret drawing that she's made of the great Maya world tree that has its roots in the underworld and has its limbs up in the heavens. And she secondly shows them a piece of obsidian. And she tells them that the reason that her grandfather, Senor Julio, built his museum in this old haunted house kind of place was because he had a dream when he was in Guatemala that someplace in this town there was a house that had a portal, a secret passageway that went back into the Maya world. And they decided it was in this particular house. But they haven't been able to find the portal, but they still think it's there. And Julia tells them, look, I think that if we do a certain ritual that the Maya used to do, which is called breath on the mirror, and we look into these obsidian mirrors and we breathe on them, and we have an overnight stay, a sleepover in the museum, maybe we can find the portal. So the kids, they really buy into this. They love this idea that they're going to have a sleepover. And so the three of them plan to have a sleepover in the museum, and they have it. And here you see them in a tent. And you see that in the background of the tent is that strange poster that has secret Maya worlds on it with a world tree in it. And so Julia teaches them how to do the breath on the mirror ritual. And as they do it, they do begin to see some strange reflections in the obsidian mirror that they're looking into. And the next thing they know, they have been lifted off their feet and they're magnetically being pulled toward that poster where you have the sacred world tree of the Maya on it, which also has a mask of one of the great kings and so forth. And they get drawn over to this tree, and then suddenly in a big swoosh, they're taken down the roots of the tree. They're falling through space and time. And as they're falling in space of time, they hear La Llorona, a woman crying. And they see stars. And they see Maya buildings. And then they hear this voice in the background that says, the beginning is in the end. And they land suddenly into the Maya world, and they realize they're back in time in Chichen Itza, where they meet a young Maya kid who happens to be playing hide and seek with his friends. And this Maya kid's name is Smoking Frog. And Smoking Frog, somehow he magically speaks the same language that they do. He listens to them. They raise their questions. We're here to find out if the Maya world is going to end, if our world is going to end. And he tells them that's ridiculous. But when they press him, he says, look, we got to go to my uncle's house. My uncle is a Maya daykeeper. And as a Maya daykeeper, he'll tell you whether the Maya calendar predicts that the world is coming to an end. So after some adventures that they have, Smoking Frog takes them to his uncle's house. And his uncle is the great Maya daykeeper, which is a real historical person, by the way. And his name is Smoking Parrot. And Smoking Parrot is one of the great figures in the book. And what he does is he sings them a song to try to teach them that, in fact, the Mayan calendar, which will be coming to an end, does not predict the end of the world. It really predicts a new beginning of the world. Here's just a part of the song that he sings. The text reads, a full answer requires a journey through the cycles and numbers of time, children. But the short answer is simple and can only be given in one of our sacred songs. Then Smoking Parrot begins to sing a song in a deep, melodious voice. How, oh how shall time be sown? How, oh where shall the world dawn? How, oh how shall the truth be known? Where, oh where will we see the fawn? The waters will be removed, the cycles will be tired, the mothers will all be soothed, and the fathers will all be sired. A cloud will appear in the black mirror of time. A mist will cross the world. The face of the earth will find its rhyme. The tree of life will twirl and whirl. The feathered serpent will fly once more. The morning star will once again soar. And to the earth the maize will pour. Here is the message to you I send. The beginning will be in the end. The beginning will be in the end. So the kids get it, but they're just so nervous they keep asking him, so are you saying that the world is not going to come to an end? And he becomes tired of this, and so he basically kicks them out of his palace. But when they go outside, they suddenly see that there's an eclipse. Now, this eclipse is a dangerous moment in the Maya world, and so the Maya begin to think maybe these strangers have caused this eclipse. And so suddenly these warriors come, and they start to chase after the three kids who had fallen back into the Maya world. There's Julia, there's Lucia and Carlos, and they start running, Well, now, something I didn't tell you earlier about Lucia, she's a track champion at her school, so she can outrun everybody. But she decides to hang back and help her brother, and Lucia does, and Julia make it back to the sacred tree, and they do just in time. And then they're back into the tent. But in fact, they're waking up. And they start to stumble around and talk to one another, and they realize that they've all had the same dream. They've all had a dream that they're all in, and that it wasn't that they had just floated over to the tree, they had all dreamed it, and that the dream itself is the portal, and that the message that they wanted to make sure they got, and that the book is trying to give to children and teachers who read it, is that the beginning is in the end, and that it depends upon a perspective, and that the Maya really were creative people who were dedicated to rituals and lives of renewal, not emphasizing the end of the world and the destruction of the cosmos, and that this, in fact, is the kind of message that they need to not only have for themselves, but also that they want to share with their families. And just at the end of the story, the guacamaya lets out a shriek to let us know he's awake, and he screeches out one last time, the beginning is in the end. And that's the story.